mind, Michael, to introduce yourself first?
Sure. I'm Michael Paik. I'm basically a lawyer that transitioned into AI audit via governance, risk management, and compliance practice. I worked in New York and California before returning to Korea, where I'm residing now. And I transitioned from kind of venture capital, private equity practice to developing risk management systems and managing them for industrial conglomerates. So tires, ships, steel. And eventually this led also to managing trade compliance under Trump 1. And after that, I went into consulting to design these systems for clients. And then as AI became more prevalent and accessible, I started building tools for compliance using AI, and eventually ended up focusing on AI audit, um, kind of, you know, because of the open questions around compliance using AI and deploying AI in the enterprise context.
Wonderful. Wow, that is quite a background. So Michael, you worked at the intersection of industry, law, risk, and AI across both Asia and the US, sounds like, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so when you coming from that background, what do you think most people today are still missing in the manufacturing and in the industry setting?
I think it's more broad than simply manufacturing, but with
Mm,
regard to manufacturing in particular, I think that parts of this digital transformation with AI need to focus more on the human aspects, the displacement, the workflows, and it's not obvious to me that's occurring. So, for example, there's a lot of industrial concerns working with consultants to affect this digital transformation, and the consultants bring with them a lot of questions and some answers. But it's my view that most of the answers lie within the organization, with the people who actually do the work, and
interesting.
understanding their concerns is first and foremost the kind of primary step before then trying to apply some sort of transformation, whether it's AI or otherwise. And
Interesting.
for AI in particular, because it's knowledge work, right? In some
Right.
sense. It's not simply efficiency gains in the old sense. And so capturing that wisdom, experience, know-how from the workforce is important, and having that occur in a manner that is not simply downloading for displacement is important. And
Interesting.
just
Yeah.
as AI is a black box, in some sense human beings are as well, right? We need to understand their motivations and intentions, and there will be a lot of, if I may say so, sabotaging if this is not managed carefully for buy-in and kind of a win-win for all parties concerned. Again, let me get granular. A lot of supply chain companies in industrial manufacturing, right? So the big name companies that most of us see in the market are not the entirety of the supply chain, right? So there's a lot of subcontractors in that
Yes.
supply chain, and some of those are smaller companies that don't have everything organized as well as Toshiba might, right? And so those smaller companies, what I'm seeing in shipbuilding, for example, is a lot of Korean mid-sized and smaller companies that provide the tooling and the actual stuff that goes into valves and so on.
Yeah.
They're owned by an elder generation that wants to retire. And in Asia, typically we had kind of family run companies where the
Family
son or
business.
daughter or son,
Yeah.
whoever, family
Yes.
would take over. The kids don't want to do that at all. They all want to become K-pop stars, right? So the uh, the 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 governance problem around these entities in the supply chain is an issue that comes up in AI deployment as well, right? So because of this, why is this important? The elder generation has all that knowledge in their head, right? The CNC settings
The
and
tribal
and other
knowledge.
processes of how to make stuff.
Yeah.
And these smaller companies aren't as organized as Silicon Valley startups in terms of intellectual property, right? So what are we going to do with this? How are the people in that kind of supply chain going to assure that these toolings, these machines, these pieces that they need are going to continue to be available if those
Yes.
organizations that are providing them have this transition problem. And then how are we going to extract that knowledge from that elder generation? And the answer here is probably AI. Downloading wisdom and experience and know-how throughout the supply chain using AI in manufacturing. Now looking at taking all of this context into account, how do you contract for work? So the legal
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure, how is that managed? So, using AI to manage that legal process and kind of the risk allocations. And then, as things are produced, how do you evolve that process for efficiency while keeping all of this other stuff into account? And there are a lot of opportunities, right? Again,
Like such as I want to hear a
well,
little
not
bit
not
about the
geeking out
opportunities. Yeah.
again, but looking at the legal infrastructure on large industrial projects. Much of this stuff is project financed around the world, and those contracts, the sets of contracts that govern how to build an airport or a toll road or a ship, these are the complex mechanisms of paper, and a lot of that can now be addressed with AI, so it's managed better, and it doesn't matter as much if it's a spot transaction where you buy something in a bazaar. But if you're looking at a 10-20 year project, the people on that project, the people that were there in the closing room when the deal was signed, they will no longer be there, right? 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and the project goes for 20 years. The banks will flip in and out very quickly. So a lot of these contracts are optimized around bankability, right? So the financing. And so when we look at data center projects or otherwise, so going directly to AI, these will be financed, and these projects will have a closing, where the deal is signed and you go into to performance. But all of the people involved will probably move on to other things. So AI is very good for bridging that, capturing that knowledge from the contract set to the performance stage, as well as for example, a lot of this stuff is the contractors, the builders, are the EPCs, right? The people who are building this stuff are contracting to do it on a kind of turnkey basis, and they build a margin in for themselves to manage their risk, right? But the problem is things don't go as planned. And so if there's a change order or some other contingency that isn't managed well, that cuts into their margin. And so using AI to manage change orders, the recording of that and the process around it so that they can get some of that money back without it having to cut into their margin. These are nitty gritty type details for companies, and they matter, right? And this is their margin. And so I think there's a lot of work that experienced professionals can do, whether they're project finance lawyers or data center experts or construction, foremen, um, that wisdom and experience in what went wrong in the past, what could go wrong in the future, and working with AI as we deploy it into industrial processes is going to be all about knowledge management.
Very interesting. I'm hearing a common theme now because, Michael, you mentioned earlier that continuity, right, through the different generations. And now we're talking about continuity for large project and especially industrial project. We're talking about spanning decades and how that fluid, how the workforce is fluid, right? And how maybe AI, there is a position for AI there to really, I like the word of bridging, right? As a
Yeah.
bridge
For
to continue
continuity.
to continuity. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that is, we're talking beyond of the tactical day-to-day AI use of using, writing an email and stuff like that, but we're now really looking at the big problem here, right? The big issues within industrial setting and where AI can come in and help.